appeal, Parveen Kapoor, holder of Cambridge Hackney license 29505, due to a fine for refusing a fare that was issued by Officer Zito and subsequently.
Please state your name for the record, spelling your first and last name.
Parveen, P-A-R-V as in Victor, E-E-N. Last name is Kapoor, K-A-P-O-O-R.
I'm the Victor Singh, D-A-V-I-N-D-E-R.
I'm sorry, if you could speak up, I couldn't hear you.
D-A-V-I-N-D-E-R. Last name Singh, S-I-N-G-H.
Ms. Lynn, can you give us the facts for that?
Yes, I can. On September 4th, 2014, the License Commission received a call from an individual who stated that Medallion 192 refused her to take her to her destination as it was a short fare. In fact, I was the one who took that phone call. She told me she was going to a job interview. The bus hadn't come. She needed a taxi. It was also bad weather, if I recall. She said that the driver of 192 told her to take the first cab in line. She approached the first cab and ultimately got into that cab. Officer Zito did an investigation, determined that it was Mr. Kapoor who was operating the 192 at that time. He told Officer Zito that he didn't refuse to take the woman, but based on this complaint and his past history for fare refusal, Officer Zito issued a $300 fine for that. He appealed to me. On September 17th, 2014, we had an appeal hearing. The same facts were reiterated by Officer Zito at this time. I explained to Mr. Kapoor then that I was the one who had received the complaint from the woman, and she was upset enough to call the office to file a complaint with us. Mr. Kapoor told me that he was the third cab in line at 1 Cambridge Center. At approximately 2 to 2:15, he was approached by two women asking for directions to the media center. He stated that he told the women that this was a walkable distance and indicated that he had a scheduled pickup at 2:30. He denied refusing the fare. I asked him if the ride was as close as you stated, he could have taken the women to their location and been back in time for his scheduled fare, and he said yes, he could have. I told him that I found several problems with the description of the incident, that if he had a scheduled pickup at 2:30, why was he in the taxi line at that time?
And I'm sorry, what time of day was this?
2 to 2:15 in the afternoon. And secondly, the complainant did in fact take the first cab in line. It wasn't for Mr. Kapoor to decide that it was close enough that she should walk. And then we asked for a waybill to see what the circumstances were, whether or not he actually had the 2:30 pickup. He didn't have a waybill in his cab as required by our rules and regulations. I reviewed his file. He's only been driving since 2010. He was given a warning in 2012 for fare refusal. He was fined $50 twice in 2012 for fare refusal. He was fined $25 in 2013 for a cab stand violation, and then $300 for this complaint. Based on the history of the fare refusals and having spoken with the woman, she was really upset about it. She was afraid that she was going to be late for her job interview, so I upheld the $300 fine.
What was the 2013 violation?
Fare refusal, cab stand violation.
So 3 fare refusals?
3, this would have been the 4th, yes.
Can you please give me your version?
Yes, on that particular day, I was standing third in line. We were actually 20 feet away from the vehicle at that time when two ladies approached, asking for directions, and I told them it's behind that building, and that's where I stand. And next thing I know, I have a 2:30 pickup from 1 Kendall Square, Binney Street site, a client of mine who was coming early. So at that particular time, she came in and I told them that just behind the building. After they left, I moved my car and went to pick up my client. Usually I'm early, 10 minutes early to pick up my clients. Next thing I know, I got a call from Officer Benny telling me that, you got to see me in the office. I obeyed the order, went to see him, and he gave me a fine. I appealed to Miss Lint, and she actually listened to my story, and she stated that the fine is state. So Mr. Devinder was a witness at that time. I had 2 other drivers who couldn't make it tonight to this hearing, and therefore I'm here to just appeal, and Mr. Devinder is going to
Mr. Demeter is.
There's also a cab driver who was in line at that time.
Tell us what you saw.
Actually, I was a witness there. We were just talking about something, and the 2 girls, they came to us, and they just asked for the direction. This is 70 Amherst Street. So that is right behind the building. And I was the first cab driver, actually. If they ask me, of course, I will take it. And why the 3rd cab driver has to suggest them to walk or something. And just that, and I don't know why they're complaining. Even I was first. I could take them anywhere.
Ms. Linton, am I correct in saying that there's nothing in our policies that says a passenger has to go to the first cab in the line? They can get to any cab in
Right.
the line.
Absolutely correct.
So if she wanted to go to the 3rd cab, she could go to the 3rd cab.
Absolutely.
And are you aware of that policy?
I am aware of that policy, 100%.
But we suggest the customers, we say, you should take the first cab.
Then
Then
the argument starts that, why the other driver comes out, and stop, why you didn't take it? Why are you taking the customer? They start the argument, and then the next thing, we never heard. I feel that. And so I think that, this is imperative that the first cab should be taken at all times. And the policy should be, if the driver is in the car, then it's good to go. The client can go in the car at any time they want, as you said. And I wasn't in the car. I was 20 feet away from my car at the time. And as a civilian, as a sincere civilian, I was giving directions to them. They asked me for directions, and I was giving directions to them. Next thing I know, I had a call. And I knew it was going to happen because, it happened before, 2 times. 1 time with a warning. I was aware of that. I wasn't going to make the same mistake again. So, and that's where I stand.
So if you knew that you had a 2:30
Prearranged.
prearranged pickup, why were you in the cab line then to begin with?
That incident happened between 2:15. So I was ready to move. I was actually just taking a break at that time, coming back to my car. So I was 20 feet away from my car and just getting ready for it. So I met my friend and I was just saying hi to him and things like that. We were talking about something. And I know the pickup was only 5 minutes away. 1 Kendall and 1 Cambridge Center is only 4 minutes driving distance. I know I could make it. 10 minutes prior to that, I pick up my client all the time. So 2:30 was a pickup. So I quickly initiated the conversation with this person right here, and I left. And the incident happened at the same particular time, so I got caught up in that moment.
So I guess the question would be is if you're in the cab line, you don't know where the next day is going to take you, asked to go to. It could be 25, 40-minute ride.
Right.
And then you would potentially miss your...
Miss my 2:30. So I know I was going to pick it up, because I know that, so I was just talking to my friend at that time. I know I was going to be there in 4 minutes. can't pick up the client because I gotta move. I was taking a break, coming out to go to my car, see my friend outside. I was talking to him for a couple of minutes and then get back in the car and get away. That's where I was going, and I got caught up in the moment. Those two ladies came in with a phone in their hand. They were looking for directions. I was being a sincere civilian. I saw them that, they need directions, so I was giving them directions. That's,
And where were they headed to?
they were heading to the media center at 70 Amherst. Media center is right behind the building behind the Kendall T station at MIT.
So you're saying that they asked for directions, they didn't ask for?
They didn't ask for a cab. I did not hear a cab. And the gentleman is sitting right here with me. And he's my witness on that.
So if they asked you for directions, you told them where it was located, how did it end up going to the first cab?
I'm sorry?
How did they end up going to the first cab?
They didn't go to the cab. They walked.
They walked?
They walked. I saw them. There are two other cab drivers who saw them. They walked.
And the weather was very clear.
And the
so
weather was
it
clear.
walkable, so. And many times the clients, when they know that the place is very close, they don't want to take cab. They just walk in. They change their mind.
I was there to help.
Ms. Lynn, did you say that she took the first cab?
But you said that she took the first cab.
That's what I thought I heard as well.
No, that he told her to take the first cab.
But we don't know whether or not she did in fact actually take the first
No,
cab.
she didn't put it because I was the first
You were the
cab
first
driver.
cab.
Yes.
No, just that he told her to take the first cab.
But you in fact were the first cab that day,
Yes.
and she didn't take,
They just third cab and they just walk to the left side, to the building.
it's actually not much more than a block from where you were.
It doesn't matter if you were. It doesn't matter if you're a block away. We were supposed to take the. We are here to provide service, public service. I'm doing that. And yes, I did get 2 tickets before, and I apologize for that. But I wasn't going to be ready to get the 3rd ticket. So I did. I'm here to provide the best service I can.
But it seems to me you somewhat exposed yourself in the fact that you knew you had a 2:30 prearranged pickup. You were in a cab line, you know that any fare doesn't have to necessarily go to the first cab, which means you could always have been somebody who was picked. So I think going back to the Chief's question, if you'd gotten a longer fare, you were just going to leave your prearranged ride?
No, I can't do that, sir. That's my prearranged set, and it's scheduled to be picked up at 2:30. I will go and pick it up at 2:30.
But if you're sitting in line, that means you potentially are going to refuse fares.
I wasn't going to refuse fares, sir. I had time. So I was 20 feet away from my vehicle. I wasn't in the vehicle. If I was in the vehicle, then I would be bonded to take a fare. I wasn't in the car. I was 20 feet away from my car outside talking to the people.
But your car was in a cab
In the
line,
cab- in the
so
cab line,
anybody
yes.
who's walking down the street would think that your cab is prepared to be hired in the cab line, right? If they see a cab sitting in a cab line, the assumption is going to be that those cabs are
I didn't
waiting
mind.
for
But if
fares.
the driver is
right?
not in there, sir, they're going to go into the second cab.
So where did she approach you at?
She approached me outside when I was outside the Chipotle. That's the restaurant. So that we were standing right next to it.
And so you weren't standing, you're saying that you were 20 feet away from your car because you were coming out from Chipotle, or you were standing at someone else's
I
cab?
went to use the restroom and I was coming out and it stood out. We were standing outside, all outside Chipotle.
And whose cab were you closer to, yours then or yours?
17.
Close by. Because we have to stand close to the first cab.
The first cab, correct.
So she said she was going for a employment interview?
She didn't say anything, sir, to me. She asked me directions, I gave her directions.
So your position is at no time did she say she wanted to get into the cab?
Nope, she didn't say that. I have two other cab drivers. This is a gentleman who was also a witness. I requested two other drivers to come in, and they just, one of them couldn't speak English well, so he was just afraid, you know, what he might say, so. Might have said.
So Ms. Lynn, you took the phone call when the woman called?
That's correct.
And again, can you relay the conversation?
I don't know if I can relate the whole conversation. I just remember that she told me that that the 192 refused to take her to her destination because it was a short fare and told her to take the first cab in the line. Oh, actually, I have to backtrack, and that she then approached the first cab and got into the taxi. So, that's what my notes indicate.
And you were the first cab in
Yes.
line?
They didn't come to me, they come to me, of course.
Well, he was standing next to your cab, right? At the time when they approached?
Yes,
Next to your cab, we're standing right outside of Chipotle on the sidewalk.
I was on the sidewalk.
So you weren't standing near your cab either then?
I was close to my cab. Yeah, he was.
So how was the distance from you to your cab when you were, how far were you away
From
from
my
your cab?
car, I was 5 yards. Because we sit out every day, it's all long hours, so we like to stand outside. So many times the people, they just ask for some directions, and if that's a nearby, they just walk.
And you observed the woman walk away towards the destination she was directed to?
So
You observed the women walk off the direction that she was directed to, and she did not get in the cab?
yes. It was just, they thought it's so close, and they walked to the direction.
And which cab do you drive?
17.
So Ms. Lynn, do we have the way bill from the 17, or did she mention? Have we looked at whether or not there's
I
a way
don't
bill for
believe
the
that we
17?
looked at that.
Do you have a way bill for that particular day?
Not today, maybe?
May I add something? So I was actually, I was out of my way bill, so I wrote down on a piece of paper what my jobs were on that day, and I have rendered that piece of paper to Ms. Lynn at the time when I had the hearing.
He did, and it was not very complete, if I recall. It's not in this file.
I have a copy of that, and I did bring it with me. I do have a copy of all the documentation that were rendered to Ms. Lynn at the time. And to Benny Zito, Officer Benny Zito as well.
It did indicate that he took a job at 2:30.
Thank you.
And I believe that's why Officer Zito didn't fine him for not having a way bill.
And you typically do fill out your way bills?
I do fill my bills, yes. On that particular day, I ran out of it, and I didn't have time to come to the city hall and get that. So, and I did apologize on the day of hearing with Ms. Lynn, and I did apologize to Officer Zito as well.
And when was your last violation of?
I'm sorry I don't recall that, but I request Ms. Lynn to please look at it.
There were 2 in 2012, 3 in 2012.
And one in 2013?
That was a cab stand violation.
Are there any members of the public that wish to be heard in this matter? Seeing none.
I'm just having a hard time reconciling the stories between the complaint and the fact that you're now a witness that basically is supporting the cited driver. It strikes me odd, though, that if you've been I mean, as you said in your testimony, you were keenly aware of the fact that the consequences of rejecting a fare, you've been the target of enforcement in the past. I'm just having a hard time understanding why you'd be in a cab line and then have a prearranged ride. It seems to me to be not in the cab line, but waiting for your prearranged ride, not take a chance, as the chief pointed out, that somebody could walk up and hail you and then risk being exposed to being fined again. So I'm just really trying to understand why that is.
If I may answer that, that's why I wasn't in my cab, inside my car. Because I know I had to pick up, so I was outside talking to these people. If I was in the cab, and if a person comes in, and I have a prearranged pickup, I would tell the person that I have a prearranged pickup. You have to go to the next person.
Aren't you technically then rejecting a fare?
If I have a prearranged, do I have to explain to the public that I have a prearranged?
The public would assume that if you're in a cab line, that you are prepared to be hired. And for you now to say to somebody when they walk up to your cab that I want a fare, or I want to hire a cab, and then you're saying, well, I got a prearranged ride, I think you're exposing yourself again to a rejection of a fare. And again, the fact that you've been cited 3 other times, you would be keenly aware of that and you would expose yourself to that risk.
Right.
And again, if somebody walked up and said, geez, I need an airport ride, I'm wondering, are you going to turn down your prearranged ride and drive to the airport?
No, I will not turn down my prearranged ride. Those are my loyal clients.
But I'm saying to you, by doing that, you are now exposing yourself to committing another violation, because when you tell a fare, even, because they don't know you have a prearranged ride, right? You're in a cab line, it's presumed that if you're in a cab line, you're prepared to take on fares. And if you turn a fare down, you're in violation of the regulation.
And my defense on that is that's why I was 20 feet away from my car. I wasn't inside my car at the time.
But your car was still there though,
My
right?
car was still there. And I was talking to these people, at that time. And when they came in for directions, I gave them directions, what I was supposed to do. And then when I gave them directions, I went to pick up my prearranged pickup.
This one, did she call immediately thereafter?
She did.
Wasn't the next day?
No. And Madam Chair, I think it's important to point out too, I'm listening to the comments that both drivers are making. It doesn't say in the rules that you can be in the cab stand and outside your cab and therefore you're not available for a pickup,
Right.
as the commissioner was referring to. And there's no set distance. I mean, I drive by the stands all the time, we all do, and certainly the drivers are outside, but if the passenger walks over, then you have to be available to take that job.
I mean, if you're that far away from your cab, I'm trying to figure out how she even knew your cab number, right? Your medallion number. How did she get that? I mean, it's your number, right?
Sir, what's that?
It's your number.
That's my number, yes. I'm not too sure how she got it, okay? At that time, I went and picked up my prearranged. So when I gave directions, she went her way, I went to pick up my prearranged. And,
And your car is
I'm
the
third car in the line,
And you're closer to his cab, which is the first car.
which is the first car in line.
So how did she associate you with that cab in the third spot?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I can't speak on behalf of the other person. I'm only going to speak on behalf of myself, and that's what I'm doing.
I'm just trying to reconcile your version of what happened and the complaint's version, and it's just a disconnect, and I really can't figure out how I can reconcile those things. I grant you a witness here, so it just doesn't make any sense to me. And again, I'm not buying the argument that you knew you had a prearranged ride, but yet you were parked in the cab stand, potentially exposing yourself again to rejecting another fare because you're not going to give up your normal customers, right? So I'm really having a hard time just kind of understanding your logic and thinking that it's okay to be in the cab stand, taking up a space that another available cab could take, right? Was the cab line filled at that time with all the cars? That typically is, and the
Yeah.
problem is that you have cabs that are trying to cruise around the block, trying to get into a cab stand, but yet you weren't prepared to take a fare, right?
No. If I want to use a restroom, that's just example I'm going to use. If I was used to use a restroom and I park my car at the stand, where else I cannot park my car anywhere else, I go use the restroom and come out and go to my car. If I want to take a break, I'm entitled to take a break.
Right,
If I want to use the public restroom, I'm entitled to do that.
right.
And
But should you be in the cab stand when you're taking your break?
right, and I parked my car in the cab stand. I couldn't find parking anywhere else. So I parked my car, went to Chipotle, used the restroom, came back out, talking to the gentleman. As soon as we done talking, went out to my car and moved out of the line. Went to pick up my prearranged. And I can't speak on behalf of the other people, and I'm just speaking on
I get that.
my own behalf. Thank you.
If I may, Madam Chair, this is a discussion that's been going on for many years in terms of when drivers need to take breaks and what's appropriate. And we went through this with traffic and parking over the years, that if you're going to be taking a break to use a restroom, get a cup of coffee, lunch, whatever, you shouldn't be at the third cab in line. You should be at the end of the line, not where it appears that you've been waiting there for a long period of time. And as you say, one of the issues that we hear repeatedly at Tax Cab Subcommittee is that we need more cab stands because there's nowhere for the cabs to park. So you're taking up a spot to have a conversation with friends while other cabs are cruising around with nowhere to go.
I'm trying to figure out why the customer was irate enough to call. I mean, you know.
Sir, again, I'm not going to speak on behalf of the other person. I'm just going to be talking about myself. What she said to me, what I did at that particular time. And that's it. I don't know what she said to Ms. Lent. I don't know. I heard the first time I heard when Officer Benizito called me in, you know, and that's the first thing I've heard. And so I can't speak on behalf of anybody else.
I guess conversely too, if you turn around and didn't tell her it was a block away and took the fare, they may feel as though that you took advantage of them because it was only around the corner, but.
I was just trying to help them out as a sincere citizen and a person that's on the street. There are a lot of diverse group of people there at MIT that comes around and asks all of us for directions. It's a touristic spot. They get off the red line, they get off the tourist bus, and they ask for directions.
And in her case, was she a tourist or was she a resident?
I don't know if she was a resident, just she had a job to do in that area.
Okay, that's where I heard the job interview. Okay. The stories don't actually really jive, but having the complainants elaborate on some of the stuff, and having a witness here that seems to corroborate your story. Seems to make favor in complainant's favor and in your favor tonight in terms of this. Again, it doesn't really add up why she seemed to get so irate about to start to make a call. Like I said, I don't know what happened, and I know, but generally something has to precipitate someone saying, I'm going to call because I'm very upset.
Sure.
And your side of the story doesn't seem to indicate that there's something there that we're aware of, so.
Did you bring witnesses with you when you spoke before Ms. Lent?
I brought a letter of reference at the time when I had a meeting with Ms. Link. The gentleman, he lives far away, and he couldn't make it at that meeting. So I had requested him to write down a note, and I brought that note to Ms. Link at the meeting, and she has a note in the file, I hope. And now, you know, I requested a hearing again, and thanks for taking the time to meet up. And I requested this gentleman to come from far away to be here at this meeting. And this gentleman was kind enough to come here for this meeting at the moment. And I thank you.
So prior to the day that the incident took place, did you two know each other before?
Yeah, we work together every day. Yeah.
I think just what I'm struggling with is this is his version, passenger's version. He's got a witness here.
We are friends, but law is law. If he's trying to put something in my car or something or wrong, we are not friends. We just say, oh, you have to do it, you have to do it.
I'm having a little trouble with the finding of facts predicated on a witness. In fact, we did.
What's the question?
This is the commissioner's purview, it's his personnel.
Which I could be much more objective than I am. I don't think I'm disagreeing with where I think you're heading. I'm really having trouble. I mean, it seems to me it's kind of a jump ball at this point in time. It would be helpful if the plaintiff witness was here, just to get some clarification. I'm troubled by the fact that you've been cited for this before. I'm troubled by the fact that you were in the cab line when you knew you weren't going to be able to take any more fares. I can't figure out how she would have attached you to your cab when you were so far away from your cab, right? I mean, those are difficulties I'm having in terms of trying to reconcile your version of what took place.
Yep.
And to the chief's point, the fact that somebody takes the time to call License Commission and file a complaint suggests that something happened that she wasn't happy about. And I'm trying to figure what that is, since you're telling me that after you gave her directions, she walked off to that location. And again, I think there's only a block away. I can't imagine why you'd want to take a cab to that location, because by the time you get in a cab, get to that location, pay for your fare, and get out, it's going to take as much time, if not longer, to finish that transaction. So,
Knowing the traffic pattern down there, why can't you still move any quicker than taking the cab?
And the weather was nice at that day. So if she's saying that the weather was bad,
I just had a memory of that. I'm not saying that that's
Okay.
actually.
yeah.
I guess I'm having trouble. I don't think there's enough finding of fact for me to uphold the fine. And I know you had a previous, and it doesn't mean because you previously were guilty that you are going to be guilty every time in the future. I'm not saying that.
we're all
But
here mutual.
Yes, but it also doesn't help the fact that you've had previous sightings as well, so. But I guess my motion is that put this on file and dismiss the fine.
Second. All those in favor
So
signify.
before you, I just want to, I mean, I hope you understand the deliberation we went through in terms of trying to reconcile your story. I think you recognize the folly in your reasoning in terms of being in a cab stand and walking off from your cab and leaving it there, that you do in fact expose yourself. I would tell you that if you came back here with that same excuse again, and I agree with both the chief and the chairperson, there's probably not enough facts to sustain the fine in my view either, but I would suggest to you that you, based on your prior experience, this conversation would better inform you in terms of how you should be conducting business when you have this kind of situation occurring again.
Okay.
If you're not prepared to take a fare, you shouldn't be in the cab line. I get your concerns about being able to take breaks and things like that.
Okay.
But you know you have other cab drivers that are competing for those spaces that are prepared to take fares, right? So
Okay.
if your purpose is to use that as a parking space, so that you can go and get a sandwich or take a break and things like that, it's not fair to the other cab drivers either, because they all have to wait in line. So you're taking a space where they could be closer to the front of the line or could have an opportunity to get a fare. Those cab stands, more times than not, you always have cabs that are trying to are jockeying for position in those cab stands. So for doing that, I think that caused some problems for me. And I'm not totally sold on the notion that you never intend to take a fare if you're in the cab line, okay? So I'm prepared to vote, but I just want to make sure that you rethink about how you're going to conduct yourself with respect to this kind of situation again, because I view this as also kind of a warning to you, a fair warning to you that you can't continue that practice because it does in fact expose you to a greater peril.
May I add to it? Every cab driver on a cab stand, they do that. So why am I different? What they do is they put their keys in the ignition, leave the car keys in the car, and the other drivers move the car. I did the same thing. I left my car keys in the car, so if the car in front of me moves, they move my car if I'm not in the car. Everybody does that.
But it suggests to me that you were prepared to take a fare, right?
What's that?
If you're allowing other drivers to move your car up in the line, that means you're still prepared to take a fare.
No, I'm not saying that. I said I went to use the restroom, left my car keys in the car. Everybody do that. If they're taking a break, they do that. And I see that all the time. Mr. Devinder is going to confirm that. And if you ask other drivers besides Mr. Devinder, they're going to say that.
That makes sense.
I can also confirm that, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's okay.
I understand, sir.
The law of the street versus the law of the land.
Sure.
Sometimes they're different, but to the point the commission's making, if your car's number 3 and you move it up, the situation gets worse because you get 2 people come up and now your car number 2.
But I have a prearranged, and I got to move. I will.
And if that's the case, then why wouldn't your car be the last car in the line and you park your car at the very back of the line?
Because I left my car keys in the car and people were moving my car so they can park their cars.
You're not helping yourself. I would suggest to you that you reflect upon the conversation we had tonight.
Okay.
And again, I think what we're trying to do is advise you in a way that I think you came very close to having the fine upheld. And you really need to think about, especially with prior history, it even complicates things a little bit more. And again, I agree with the chief, just because you did it before doesn't mean you did it again. But you should be well informed of the consequences of rejecting a fare. And you shouldn't put yourself in that situation, particularly if you have a prearranged fare. And you're not going to stiff your regular customers because that's bad business. I get that. So I think we're ready to vote. There was a motion and a second. So I think the chair will vote for the vote.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
You had that look on your face like, what happened?
Yeah, what's the verdict?
Yeah, at the end, 300. Okay, just with writing the file.
You were successful in your appeal.
Thank you very much for all your time.